And I'm going to go ahead and suggest that we get started.
I just clicked record.
Did you? You got it? Okay, good. All right. I'm going to introduce myself. I am the official host tonight. Kelly Roos is the name. I don't know. Can you see that, or is it backwards? Backwards, right? Look at it in a mirror across the room, all right? This is my official pickup badge, all right? So you can call me Rooster, though. That's been my nickname all my life. I'm one of the pickuppers, I guess you could say. And I'm going to introduce my co-host, Larry Engelhart.
Hello.
He's the one with those fancy headphones on, waving right at the moment. Right. So we welcome. We looking forward to tonight. We thought we'd do something interesting. We've been conducting these online meetings once a month or so this year, and we thought it'd be fun to get together some of you who have signed up for the faculty development workshop this summer, and have a chance to get a little glimpse into what we're going to be doing. We thought it'd be even more fun to have some of the participants from last year's come and provide some words of wisdom. So the format we're going to do is have the three of the participants from last year. Michelle Kuchera. Michelle, can you hold your Miller light up again there? Do something interesting to make yourself front and center. You're not doing anything interesting, Michelle. Well, Michelle's here somewhere. And also Todd Zimmerman. Todd, are you here? There's Todd waving. I don't know if you can see him. I guess if you don't actually say anything, I think if you say something, if you unmute, then you can, then your image gets plopped front and center there. Try it, Todd. Say something intelligent.
Hello, everybody.
There you go. Everybody see Todd now. All right. Michelle, are you there? Unmute and say something.
Hi. Did it work?
Well.
Hello.
There we go. There we go. There's Michelle. And I don't see Hunter yet, but
Hunter sent a message that he'll be joining momentarily.
Yeah. Okay. All right. He'll be along shortly. All right. So now, one thing that tends to help the operation of these meetings is if you indeed stay muted until you get called on, or until you just can't help yourself, but you got to bust into the conversation. All right. So that usually works well to keep yourself muted and keeps background noise out, and it's easiest to hear the speakers. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Tony, Tony's the other one. I forgot to introduce Tony here. Tony, make a noise.
Howdy, y'all.
Here's
my name tag.
Yeah, there's Tony. Yeah. Yep, there is. And I forgot 4. I guess we got 4 of you, don't we? Good. All right, so who wants to start? Tony, do you want to start?
Sure.
Okay. Well, so why don't you go ahead and, like I said, give us some words of wisdom, and then we'll go through the other 3. And I would suggest we'll open up for questions after our speakers are done. All right.
And I could also make a suggestion. If there are questions that come to you or thoughts that come to you while someone is speaking, there is a chat window. If you scroll over the video down at the bottom, there's a chat icon you can click on, and you can go ahead and type over in the chat window. So we'll have questions or comments that are there for when there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
So my name is Tony Musumba, and I teach at Bismarck State College. It's a 2-year college, and I teach the introductory sequence of physics 1, 2, and I also teach college physics. And so I've been doing integrating computational physics for a couple of years now. But I knew Kelly, Larry, and the rest of the PICUP guys, and so I figured that when they talked about the faculty development workshop, I already had an experience with them, and I knew how much wisdom Kelly had. And so I definitely signed on pretty early, and I was looking forward to this workshop last year. The other thing, I hadn't been to Wisconsin, so I wanted to get to Wisconsin. Though I'm just in Bismarck, North Dakota, but I figured, why not? Go out and see the Parkers. Anyway, I'm kidding. But the other thing is, of course, when you go to these faculty development workshops, you want to connect with faculty. I am primarily a teaching faculty, and I want to hear what the research faculty are doing, how they're doing, integrating computation into their upper level courses, even though I don't teach those upper level courses. So I like to interact with people and get to expand my horizons. So it was really a good time to be out there in Wisconsin and interact with faculty and create activities that I might use in my classes. So on a personal level, what did I achieve by being there? I guess you grow in the way you look at how you integrate computation. I was exposed to a couple languages that I hadn't really used. And I must say, I wasn't planning on using them, but that exposure just helps you also in your professional development. I did work on an activity that I was going to use in my undergraduate courses. I never really published it, and it's not publishable yet, but I started on that activity and use it. The one big thing also that I learned from the faculty development is to think seriously about your learning goals. So I hadn't really thought seriously and critically about why I'm doing computation and why I want my students to actually do this computational stuff that I was doing, the activities that I was doing. How were they mapping onto learning outcomes and stuff like that? So that's the first time that I have seriously thought about what I'm doing computationally and how my students are supposed to actually do these activities and eventually get the outcomes that I'm expecting. So that was a big thing for me. I also picked up Slack. When I came to the workshop, I hadn't quite started using Slack, but I had read a chemistry magazine that talked about researchers using Slack in their labs for collaboration. So when Danny came up with the Slack idea, I jumped on it. I wasn't I didn't post a lot of stuff, but I emailed a couple people. I talked direct messages. And when I went back to Bismarck, lo and behold, I had a whole bunch of Slack groups that I created, some for clubs, some for my classes. And I've been very active on Slack, and the collaboration has been really great for me. So I guess I must say that Go PICUP has been the most active Slack that I've been involved in, Slack group that I've been involved in, or Slack team. And I've kind of maintained contact with people that I went to the workshop with, and some other new people that I've met over the course of last year. The one thing that started off in the workshop itself, the faculty development workshop, was thinking about what could happen if I had a computational community among North Dakota and Minnesota. So I basically sent out an email during the workshop and I said, would you guys be interested in us doing a computational workshop? And I'm happy to tell you that we actually had one this last April, and it was a very successful computational workshop. And hopefully we'll follow up on the stuff that we're doing here. That's about all I had. I'm glad to meet you guys all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tony. Let's see, next up, how about Michelle?
But before Michelle, could I follow on one thing that Tony said? So everyone should have received an invitation via email in the last half an hour, inviting you to the PICUP Slack team, and that's what Tony was just talking about. So feel free to accept that invitation, and you also were invited to specifically join a channel within that PICUP Slack team devoted to the Faculty Development Workshop 2017. And by all means, feel free to ask more questions about that. Okay, that's all.
Yep. Good. Okay, Michelle, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, you've got that beer polished off?
Not quite yet.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so I'm Michelle Kuchera. I am a new faculty member at Davidson College, which is a small liberal arts college near Charlotte. And so I attended the workshop last summer, coming into my first year in a tenure track position. So I didn't really know what to expect the following year, but the workshop was still incredibly useful. And I think that one of the greatest things that I took away was resources. And one of those is the Slack channel. So Slack is incredibly useful. Another one is the community of faculty who have similar goals to you, and also you're introduced to a lot of resources where you can find exercises that people developed, but also resources like I didn't know about Trinket, which if you don't know about, I assume you will learn about at the workshop, and different ways to use languages that I knew. So it was incredibly useful. And I guess I should say that I'm a computational physicist, and so my research is all computation based. So it wasn't that I was learning like Python for the first time, but I was learning how to use Python in new ways. So some of the kind of tips that I wrote down is, first, you should have some idea about your fall course material before going. So when you're at the workshop, you can frame what you're learning in terms of something that you can implement when you get back home. And so that may be just knowing what courses you're teaching and being able to frame what you're learning in the context of an actual assignment or lab, depending on how you want to integrate things that will be applicable right away. In addition, I think that you will quickly realize that there's no one solution to integrating computation into your curriculum. A lot of people come from a lot of different backgrounds. For example, I'm at a small liberal arts college, so my class sizes are a lot smaller. Maybe I have some flexibility and freedom that other people don't have, but maybe I also have other barriers that people don't have. And also realizing that people have different learning goals for why they want to integrate computation. So you aren't going to get like a list of notes of how to go back and integrate computation into your classes or like into your department, because people have different restrictions and different goals. So I think those are important things. Lastly, I think the collaboration and the people that you meet is so incredibly important there. So just with talking to some folks that I just met, we all had similar interests. I had just mentioned some idea that I had in the back of my mind about having some sort of physics hackathon at my college. And I got so much support from the other faculty at the workshop that I ended up coming back and putting together a campus-wide event that we hosted this semester. So I don't think I would have done that without the support of my colleagues at the workshop. I'm all done.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Todd, do you want to go next? Hunter has disappeared. So why don't you go next and we'll see if Hunter comes back.
Sure. I think I'm going to move into a different room though, so there's no crying baby in the background. I'm Todd Zimmerman, and I am a faculty member at UW Stout, which is just down the road from River Falls, and I'll actually be helping out this summer, so I'll get to meet some of you in person. I went to the workshop last summer, and so what Michelle and Tony had said, I would kind of reiterate a lot of those things. I think the two things I would add, first off, having devoted time just to work on these projects makes a huge difference. You know, you have all these ideas throughout the school year, and having several days where you're forced to sit there and just work on these things is a wonderful experience. I would not have gotten as much done without that. And, you know, the other thing is there are people there that have a lot of experience getting these things to work. And so it was so nice, you know, especially Danny and some of the other people there who have worked with Trinket, they've worked with VPython. And so just having them there to troubleshoot and tell you all the little tricks and tips, and also seeing what's possible. So I think there's a lot of good things that come out of this, and I look forward to seeing a lot of you this summer. And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Hunter must be having troubles, and if he should show up, we'll have him address us, all right? So that is everybody so far. And I think at this point, we will open it up to any questions you have.
And Paul did post a question in the chat window if you wanted to jump in, Paul.
Yeah, St. Mary's is a teaching institution, and a lot of what we do involves service courses, both for non-science majors and for biology majors. And I'm wondering what I've talked to Nathan Moore over at Winona State, and I think it's probably fair to say that his attempt to do Python programming, for example, in an undergraduate, say, calculus-based physics laboratory, has been that his experience with that has been mixed. So I was wondering if people had experience with that resistance. I'm particularly interested in Davidson. I think Davidson is probably several tiers above us in terms of the quality of students that enroll at Davidson. So I was just wondering what people's experience was in attempting to get non-majors and even biology majors to program. Thanks.
I can definitely speak to that, being from Davidson. So I do think that I have a unique crew of students, and I can tell you my experiences with it, but I think that that I should outline my learning goals for when I implemented computation in my calc-based intro course last semester that we had pre-med, bio, chem majors, that sort of thing. So my goal there was I essentially flat out told the students, you aren't going to learn to program. Don't be afraid that you're looking at code. And I implemented computation in the classes, specifically inside of the labs. And I did that only because that's where I had wiggle room to do it. So we just cover so much material in class time that I didn't have time to sit down with them, and I could sit there and they wouldn't be stuck working on stuck on a bug in their homework for, way too much time, because my goal for them was to use computation to understand the concepts better. So I did it with trinkets and Jupyter notebooks, and I think the trinket was the most successful because we could embed it right into our LMS, our Moodle is what we use, and I could ask them specific questions about it. So I would provide Python code, and specifically VPython, because I wanted them to visualize what they were doing. I would give them code, and then I would ask them to change certain things. And so maybe it was always a working code that I gave them, and then I'll say, okay, change the sign of the charge, but they'd have to look in the code and figure out where the charge was being allocated and change it. So I told them they wouldn't have to learn the code, but yet they're still learning that logical thinking. But I never asked them to code anything from scratch. Probably the biggest surprise for me of doing that last semester was I received no negative feedback from the integrating computation into the lab course, which I assume somebody would be unhappy with that. And that wasn't the case, but we always did it in lab with me there to help them.
I have a quick follow-up question, Michelle. So when you were describing how you had them kind of play, it sounded a little bit like play with some of the parameters within the code and see how that affects the outcome, right? Would you then compare that a little bit with like what some instructors do with regards to like the applets that are used, like coming out of Colorado Boulder? Like, were you kind of using it in that context?
So if I'm thinking about, so first of all, were you at Michigan State?
Yes.
I was a postdoc there. I think you were graduating.
Yes. It's been
Okay.
a while, but hello. Sorry.
Hi. I'm like, wait, I know you. Okay. Can you ask me the question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the way you were describing how it sounded you were using the like trinket in your intro labs was to build more understanding with the lecture material. And that sounds how I've heard some faculty at various places use like some of the applets coming out of places like Boulder, where the code isn't obvious, but it's they can input directly different parameters. Like with the ideal gas case, they'll change the pressure and they'll see these things change. Maybe you're not that familiar with those. I just mentioned that because they're.
No, so I think what you're talking about are applets where you aren't interacting with the code, right?
Right.
FETs in particular you're talking about, right?
Yes, that's the term I was searching for, yes.
Here, which are similar. Yeah, so I'm familiar with the FETs and the Fizzlets. And this is, I consider, so the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing, which is I'm giving them the code side by side with the animation or interactive simulation, because I want them actually to make lists and edit and run code, maybe create a bug themselves and fix it. So so even though I'm telling them that they don't have to learn to code, and to them maybe it is similar to working with a FET or a Fizzlet, I have like my secret learning goal for them, which is to become familiar with computation and understand that logical thinking that goes into changing the actual code to meet to meet my requests.
So it's in some ways it's not computation qua computation, it's computation qua algorithmic thinking.
Yes, and that's specifically for the intro classes, I would say, because in the upper level classes, I would expect them to know numerical methods and algorithms and know how to specifically code from scratch.
Oh, that's helpful. Thanks. I've used the PHET simulations a lot and have written sort of homework sets based on, or laboratory experiences based on those, but it's much more an appliance than it is an actual experience of the coding, because I'm kind of conflicted whether it's legitimate for me to say, this learning goal is appropriate for this class at this level.
So maybe I can jump in and talk about my experience. So I teach at a 2-year college, and sometimes people think 2-year colleges, students are pretty weak, but that's usually not the case. Some of the guys who come to take engineering are pretty strong students. They just kind of come to Bismarck State College while they wait to go to North Dakota State University or University of North Dakota. So I started off with baby steps, and that's almost like 4 years ago. I had been exposed to the work that PICUP does through one of the guys in California, and I started kind of using baby step and throwing in a computational activity or two a semester. And then I experienced the resistance that you're talking about. But I mean, I was always constantly looking at what is it I'm doing right or wrong. And then I realized that, I mean, if you're going to throw in a little computation here and a little computation there without any thread, then you're going to have trouble. So I kind of dove in, or I decided I was going to use modern interactions as a curriculum 2 years ago. And this is when I had been using computation for a couple activities a semester. And I found that the resistance is always going to be there, but you're going to outlive your students somehow. So what I mean is that when you're a new faculty, you experience a lot more resistance. But when your students know that this is what they're going to do, they eventually get to understand the reason why you're doing that. Of course, the one thing that Michelle mentioned was that there are different flexibilities and different barriers. Well, my flexibility is that I have a 3-hour lab. That's a huge chunk of time. You can do computational stuff, and you can also actually do a lab. And then I meet with these students who are only 20, not more than 20, and you can also make it such that they code together as a group of 3 or a group of 4, so that it's not too challenging for you moving around trying to troubleshoot code all the time. So those are a couple of things that you can do. And I can also say about the college physics, I tried once to integrate computation in one of my classes, and it worked out pretty well. But I thought that year there was a very special students of college physics, very special students who are able to actually take computational activities quite quickly. And I did not replicate it again, but I would like to actually do computational activities with college physics, but I'm thinking I would rather use Excel or something else. And that's something I can talk to Kelly about, who's done that quite a bit. Does that help in some way, shape, or form?
Well, it helps me to a certain extent. I don't want to over-dominate the discussion here, but I'm just thinking that it's difficult to for example, let me give you an example. We teach a course in microcontroller architecture that's part of the instrumentation sequence for the physics majors. We used to teach that course before without a programming prerequisite. In other words, they would walk in and they would start programming in assembly language. It was a bit of a disaster. And so we instituted a programming requirement before. It doesn't matter that the programming's in Python and that they're going to be doing assembly language programming with the microcontrollers. But it's this is what I was getting at before, this whole question of algorithmic thinking, that you think not theoretically or experimentally or phenomenologically, that you think algorithmically. It's how can I put together a step-by-step algorithm to do this. And what Michelle, I think, I agree with you that eventually you want the majors to be doing something a little more sophisticated, that you want them to start coding from scratch, so that it's not just algorithmic thinking, but it's actual algorithmic application that they're actually coding. So I wonder what other people experience is.
Looks like Larry is talking, but he's not.
Yeah, I was gonna. Larry, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I actually, what I was saying, but you weren't hearing, was that just pointing out that Hunter has joined apparently from a cave in Texas, and so if you wanted to share anything.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and have Hunter? You ready, man?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead, then we'll get back to questions.
It's a good time in the cave because the bats are out eating dinner. So what is the prompt? What would you like me to
we just want you to give us some words of wisdom.
Okay. So my words of wisdom.
Speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
Right. We listened to that song earlier during dinner with my kids. I so I have, I guess my words of wisdom, just in case this wouldn't occur to anybody or to somebody, is to have a particular problem in mind to solve, rather than to learn generally. And also, in case anyone doesn't have any experience programming, I think it'd be good to jump into something before you go to the workshop, because I think the way it's structured is that there seems to be an assumption in the structure of the workshop that you have an idea of what you're trying to tackle. So I've definitely spent the whole year since the workshop stumbling forward and wrestling with a problem of how to, I mean, most of my experience, I guess, up until the workshop had been giving open-ended programming experiences to upper division physics students, but also like laying off in terms of the expectations, just saying, hey, I'm learning, you're learning, let's figure something out and you can make something cool. But what I've been wrestling with this year is figuring out how to create enough structure to sort of hold introductory students together while they encounter computer programs for the first time. So I was thinking, let's see, I don't think I know your name, but user NIE neighbor, who was talking about algorithmic thinking. What's your name?
Paul Nienaber.
Paul, okay. So Paul was talking about algorithmic thinking, and my intuition has been not to engage students at the introductory level in algorithmic thinking, or rather not tossing them any algorithmic thinking tasks. And maybe I'm underestimating them, but my idea is to really try to prevent resistance by providing them a lot of support with the assumption that computer programming is a relatively intimidating situation for a lot of the students, and that I want to provide them relatively easy tasks, modify this parameter or write. So today I was, there was a free body diagram trinket. It was a static. There was a block being pushed on, like a person was pushing on one side, the person was pulling on the other side with a rope. There was a static friction force. And I was working with a student. We were designing the trinket together. We were saying, okay, let's have the students write a formula for the size of the force vector by the friction force that's in response to the person pushing and the person pulling on the rope. So all we want them to do is to write, axis equals minus, force by Chris dot axis plus force by Pam dot axis. So but we're going to write some comments into the code that say, for the axis of the friction force, replace the vector 0, 0, 0 with a formula in terms of the axis of the other forces. So we're giving them kind of what are the terms that we're saying, put these Legos together into this slot in whatever way you think would work based on what you know about physics so far. So it's very far from suggesting to the students that they design an algorithm, but rather just that it's a lot of toe dipping. This is my intuition. I don't know that it's right. But we want to create a lot of toe dipping experiences for the students in the introductory mechanics course, so that they just feel comfortable looking at code, finding a place to edit it, editing that, maybe writing a formula or writing, some numerical things, getting a little bit used to some data types, and that's it. In terms of the goal, the way that we're conceptualizing it in our program, the goals for the introductory mechanics students is just to get them some exposure, getting them looking at code and modifying it lightly. And then we've also added after I came back from the workshop, we added a new course and have yet to seriously design it for next fall, but it's going to be a sophomore level intensive Python lab course for physics majors taught in the physics department, using the Kinder and Nelson Introduction to Python for Physical Modeling book. And that's the idea that, you've had some exposure and now we're going to teach you really, in a deliberate way where you're really expecting you to learn specific things in this sophomore level course. So that's my wisdom dump, such as it is.
Thank you, Hunter, for that dump. All right. I wanted to follow up real quick on something I saw happening in the chat. And Carol, do you want to maybe elaborate on your comment, maybe / question there about computation throughout the curriculum? What specifically is it you're interested in? The big picture? Is that what you're asking about?
I wasn't the first person to mention that. I was adding to the people who already had, but I can talk about my experience today. I'm at Cal State San Bernardino, and we are in an interesting position where we're getting ready to convert from quarters to semesters. So we have an opportunity to completely redesign our curriculum from the ground up. I think most people don't get that opportunity all at once to go through and do. So, we've been talking about making like a computational class for our majors, like Hunter was just talking about, and I've been dabbling and putting it in some courses that I've taught at the sophomore and junior level. But since we have this opportunity to embed it and therefore reinforce it even after that computational class, I'm absolutely interested in hearing anyone's ideas or how they've done this in their department.
Anybody want to tackle this one?
Is the question, how would you integrate computation throughout the whole undergraduate program?
That's one part of it, yeah. So more so just ideas of how people might address this if you had the opportunity to, or how people are already doing it.
I'll add one word, which I put in the chat window a little bit ago, which I think goes along with a lot of things that Michelle was saying and Hunters were saying and Tony and others, of scaffolding for the computational exercises being very, very important. And having lots of scaffolding to start with and reducing that little by little over time. I think is an important thing and will be a big part of the workshop also.
I'll make a comment here. So I taught, so our department is semester-based, but nonetheless, we just added a course to our major of computational physics. And ours is a sophomore level class, but given the constraints of how few majors we have, like a lot of departments, it's only an every other year course. And the prereq for it is just the intro mechanics course.
Adam, where are you at?
I'm at Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. So we have a physics major. It's a 4-year bachelor's degree. And it was the first time this course was offered was when I taught it last semester. So it's a new course for our major. And it's required for the major. But we have either sophomores or juniors. So it's not a prereq for our upper level courses, just out of, practical thoughts on when students take our upper level courses. We don't even offer all of our courses every year. Sometimes it's every other year. So that's something that we're working through on trying to think of, well, how do we integrate this through our upper level curriculum? So we're still developing that a little bit. I know for us, the idea is something like, well, if students get this idea of how numerical methods are used, algorithmic thinking, knowing how to use, if for while statements in an applied sense, regardless of language, then the upper level course instructors can implement that a little bit at their discretion. But I know for us at the moment, it's very non-structured. And part of that is our realistic case of we can't assume students take it like first semester sophomore year every year, just because that's not realistic. So that's a real difficulty for us to try to deeply integrate it. So I think realistically, we won't be able to deeply integrate it into our curriculum just because of how our prereqs have to work. And that's, difficult, but that makes it where when I'm thinking about what I want students to get out of that course, how portable the ideas and applications they're learning are. And I try to focus on the more portable aspects and less in the specifics, I guess, if that makes sense. I mean, that's one of the things I'm hoping to make progress on in the workshop, is getting some more ideas on how some other people do that. Like when I'm teaching it, I use Mathematica because we had licenses for it, so I didn't have to have students buy it, and it had really nice built-in plotting, and I can do some of the programming inside, and I wasn't too concerned about the language, and I didn't want the students to have to pick up a whole language, and it was only a 2-hour course for us, so every department's going to have those factors, but with you switching from quarter to semester, that's exciting to think about how you can do that. But if you were able to get it where that class is offered every year and all the students always take it, say, as sophomores, then you could have more flexibility in having it almost as a prereq for some of the upper level classes, right? Whereas for us, that's not, at the moment, how it's designed, that's not how it's implemented.
How many majors do you have graduate per year, Adam?
How many graduates per year?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 2 to 6.
Okay.
It's quite small.
Yeah.
We might have, that many or more minors, but like I had 6 students in my computational course, and 3 were majors and 3 were minors.
Well, operating at that volume, you also don't have to be quite as organized. I think you can do a lot more one-on-one coaching.
Well, that's true, and like the pace was easier to set because if I thought we were going a little too fast, I could slow down very easily. Each student had their own computer in the lab space, so it's a very different integration than what some of you have mentioned with the introductory course sequence. Integrating that either in the lecture or in the lab component. I know, like that. In principle, we could do that, but our lecture and lab instructors are not the same people. They're separate courses. So then that gets complicated on integration. So so Carol, I think that would be exciting with you switching from your system because you have a real opportunity to think about how you want to do that.
Right. We're spending a good year and a half on designing that. Sorry, I'll let whoever's next going.
Oh, I was just going to make a comment, piggyback on that, kind of aimed at you, and that's that I don't know how many faculty are in your department, but if you're thinking about integrating computation throughout, I'm in a department that strongly supports integrating computation into undergraduate physics, and we still aren't at a consensus on how to do that. And so, like, for example, I teach a computational physics class required for physics majors at the sophomore level in Python, but they may then get an advanced mechanics professor who doesn't know Python, is not planning on learning it, and is going to use maybe MATLAB, which isn't so different, or Mathematica, which I think is significantly different. So you do have, I think, some challenges there if you have a larger department, or even just the department where there's not a consensus on what people would like to use. If you'd like students to really keep using their skills without having to learn a new language. But I mean, you can still do it. I mean, we make do here, I would say. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up is when people are talking about integrating computation into undergraduate physics curricula, I think that there are, I don't know if there's 2 approaches or just 2 ways that it works at colleges and universities because of the scheduling, but some people have a computational physics class where you can like sit them down and give them a set of skills, and then other people don't have that luxury or choose not to do that, and they're integrating it throughout. And I think that that's 2 very different ways of having to implement it, because you have to spend more time in the class talking about algorithms and things like that if you don't specifically have a computational physics class.
Michelle, I just wanted to comment about your diversity of languages at the upper division. We have the same situation where we don't have, the faculty are not all on board with, using Python at the upper division level. I mean, they may come to that conclusion, but right now our attitude is we're going to do exposure to Python, then we're going to do explicit instruction at the middle level on Python, which is, people I trust say it's a good language to learn in. And then, at the upper division level, it's at the instructor's discretion. The one thing, so I'm the director of the undergraduate program, and I won't pressure people to use a specific language, but I will be willing to say, that you have to have some computational activities in the class. And our attitude has just been, that's for the student to adapt to, and good luck. And that's reasonable. So.
If I may just ask a question. My name is Axel Mellinger from Michigan University, and it's the first time for me at this meeting. Does anyone have experience doing computations in lab courses that are taught by teaching assistants? Because that's the situation that I'm facing. I'm coordinating the college and university physics lab courses, but I'm usually not in the classroom. We have a total of between 12 and 15 sections, university and college physics combined per semester. So obviously I can't teach all of those courses.
Since no one else immediately jumped in, I'll just point out that another one of the PICUP people who isn't here tonight but will be at the faculty development workshop this summer, Danny Caballero from Michigan State. He has a lot of experience with that, and he teaches large introductory classes where TAs are doing exactly what you're talking about. It's in the lab that they're doing their computation, and it's the TAs that are doing it. And he does a lot of TA training to make sure that the TAs are doing what they should. Tony, you can go ahead and follow on that.
Yeah, I just want to echo the same things you're saying. Danny's actually taught taught introductory physics with computational integration when he was at Georgia Tech. So he has experience teaching it as a teaching assistant too. And now he's a professor at Michigan State University. But Purdue University has also been doing that with teaching assistants. And there are a number of classes that do that using matter and interactions curriculum.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to echo is that we try to, I hope you're okay with all the information we've solicited from you to date, and there will be a few more before the workshop actually comes around, because we really try to tailor things to fit what you're all interested in. And even this meeting here gives us a good idea of where to focus. So I think everybody who participated last year would agree that all of these things will be discussed in pretty good detail this summer at River Falls. Couple hands going up here. Who? Lejeune, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, it is correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lejeune. I teach in Georgia Gwinnett College. And my question is, I have never used Python myself. I did Fortran and C in my PhD work. So if I try to learn it now, do you think I can do something like during the workshop?
You're getting 2 thumbs up from Michelle there, Lejeune.
Yes.
Well, I think that people were at the workshop who had never programmed in Python before, and they definitely were able to accomplish something, even just arriving at the workshop and being like, oh, everyone wants to use Python but me, maybe I should try this out. And they were able to create something. It doesn't mean that they went back and implemented it in their classes like 3 weeks later, but I think that you can definitely pick it up. And I think that Fortran and Python are similar with if you use arrays specifically.
Okay. So can you give me some suggestions, like how to, like which book to start with, or which other resources you think I should?
For specifically for Python, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Larry, would you recommend Mark Newman's book?
Well,
You're muted. You're muted, young man.
okay, now I'm muted. Okay,
Yeah, we can hear you now.
okay. So, are you talking about for teaching yourself, or teaching in a computational context, or for a introductory course?
Teaching myself Python language.
Okay. Yeah, for yourself, you might also, Ruben Landau's book is freely available on Compadre. We can send you a link for that, but that's it's rather advanced for students mathematically, but is not, you'd be fine with it. And you could learn Python, but yeah, and Mark Newman's book you could use. It's rather verbose. I think it's a little lengthy to assign to students, but there's lots and lots of good things. Oh, there's some links showing up in the chat window right now.
Yeah.
Hunter's suggesting Hour of Python. Tony, did you wanna still interested in sharing something?
Yes, I am. I just wanted to say that for someone who's done C and Fortran, Python is a piece of cake. I'm one of the worst programmers in the entire universe, but I did learn some Python. So yeah, you're pretty okay. I mean, I still struggle with coding, but I still teach it, you know.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We should be sure to make clear that you're not required to use Python or any other specific language. You should use whatever you want to use. At the same time, if there's something that you want to learn, by all means, we encourage you to go ahead and learn something new, and we will provide support to help you learn new things.
Yeah. We have amongst the amongst the staff we're going to have at the workshop, there will be sufficient expertise for impromptu tutorials on just about anything. So, and by the way, in case I haven't made it clear, we're only 14 miles away from Ellsworth, Wisconsin, which happens to be the cheese capital of Wisconsin. No, cheese curd capital of Wisconsin. Yeah, that's the claim anyway. Fresh and squeaky.
And good milkshakes.
Oh, yeah. You won't eat for 3 days if you have one of those. I didn't mean to derail things with cheese curds and milkshakes, by the way. So, Lejeune, did that take care of your question? You're still muted there.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah. So, and if you look into any of these, if you have further questions, feel free to contact us or anybody here.
Okay.
Also, have you, there? I think Larry mentioned it. There's also the Slack channel that you've all been invited to. So take advantage of that coming up to the workshop also.
And
Okay.
within the Slack pickup team, there are channels specifically for example, Python, GlowScript, Jupyter Notebooks that are all sort of within the Python family, as well as different languages, as well as different content areas of physics. So you can post questions or comments in there and start discussions there.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you start playing with Python and Google doesn't answer it for you, go to the Slack channel. Somebody will get to you, right?
Okay.
Will, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of to ask if anyone knew about, or if you did, what you thought about Rhett Allen, he writes at Wired. He is pretty prolific with writing Trinket code to analyze simple situations in the introductory physics area. He's also really good about using video analysis to also augment some of the analysis that he does for his blog. And so it's a really good place to see how some of this could be used in introductory class. The nice thing about Trinket, of course, is that you can play with the code a little bit right there in the browser. So what do y'all think about the work that Rhett does and using that in courses as well?
Did everybody get the name? That Will, can you say what was the name?
There's a Hunter put a link there.
I believe there's a link now. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rhett Allen.
Gotcha. You were kind of coming in and out a little bit.
That guy. Yeah, my internet's not so good, I guess.
Yeah. No, yeah, but just toward the end there. It's okay. Is anybody familiar? I am not. So.
Yeah, he should totally be a pick-upper. I've landed on his site many a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've seen his work. Oh, sorry. Who's that?
He's a natural.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen his stuff with Trinket, and I found it to be, good advocacy work about sort of exposing it to people. I don't think I didn't see any situation where I thought that what he had done with Trinket was especially different from other things that I knew kind of from people within our community. Mm-hmm. So I see him mostly as kind of having found an advocacy niche.
Yeah, I think on the blog, he's appealing to a general audience. So what he's posting there is for not a college student, right? Someone that's just interested in physics. And so I think that he, on the blog, appeals to that population extremely well. And I think he's a professor somewhere. I think I recall reading his bio, because I remember thinking this semester, oh, this summer I should email this guy and see if he knows about PICUP. So I looked up his page. And so he very well in his class might implement things that would be really great for our resources, but those wouldn't be the things that would be appropriate for the Wired blog.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Will. We'll have to look into this.
Email him, Will.
So just for fun, I'll just toss in that I have a video meeting, if I can get my video to work, on Thursday this week with Elliot Hauser, the CEO of Trinket, and with 3 high school teachers that Elliot knows as being heavy GlowScript Trinket users, and they are Frank Noskesi, Byron Philauer, and Sean Weather. No. I forget. I'm sorry. But I guess I just wanted to say that that I'm in the midst of getting connected with sort of the master high school physics teacher users, and we'll be able to bring some stuff back to the PICUP community if there's any sort of special expertise that they have. And then also, I just wanted to assure everybody that I've built a relationship with Elliot Hauser, the CEO of Trinket, by putting in an NSF proposal together in March. And I've found him and the CTO of Trinket, Brian Marks, very approachable and very, very friendly. So they've been very helpful, and they want Trinket to be more widely used and more effectively used. And so I think you can reach out to them too.
Yeah. Thanks, Hunter. You'll have to keep us posted on all that.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, is there any pressing thing that you would like to have addressed before we close here? It's a little after 9 Central Time, and we usually try to limit these to about an hour or so. Does anybody want to add any closing comments?
Well, I just wanted to hear something from Will Newton and David Allscott.
Tony wants to hear something from you guys. How can you turn that man down, huh?
I guess you can't. Hi, I'm Will Newton. So I'm a professor at Texas A&M Commerce. I'm teaching quantum mechanics upper division class for the first time in the fall. So I'm teaching it very, I'm going to be teaching it in a sort of studio physics style, and I also want to incorporate some computational projects in there. So I'm going to be coming to the workshop with a couple of ideas for things for the students.
Good. We've got some stuff for you too.
But I've also hearing you all talk, I've also feel somewhat inspired to think about introducing some computational projects at the in our intro physics courses as well, which I hadn't really considered doing, but hearing you all talk, I kind of
yeah. Well, good.
Inspired to think about that.
Good. David, would you like to say anything before we close tonight?
Sure, I'll jump in briefly. Thanks for doing this. I'm looking forward to it.
Certainly.
I teach at Simpson College in Iowa, and we're a two-person program, a small program, graduating about 2 to 6 per year. And don't have much background in computation. My very new colleague does, and we'll be coming together.
Good.
And we want to implement, ultimately, we realize it take a few years, teaching physics or computation across the curriculum. So I'm going to be coming as a novice to Python and things like that, but our computer science department starts teaching programming with Python. Our math department has the mathematical platform, and so those are the two we're hoping to work with. I'm not sure how that's going to work together. So we're fresh and new to this, but I'm looking forward to it. And I just want to say to Tony, too, thanks for inviting me in here. And I'm a North Dakota person myself, so glad to meet you. And I went to school at North Dakota State. So
yeah, good. All right. Well, good. It's good to meet you all. We also are very much looking forward to the workshop, and it's coming up 2 months or so away, right? No. All right. Well, all of you, thanks a bunch. Stay tuned. We'll be communicating more with you when it gets a little closer, especially when it comes down to coordinating travel and everything. And if there's any questions or concerns about anything, you know where to find us. The gopicup.org, that About Us, has all of our emails. And let's see. Or there's also, there's also the Slack channel too. And that way you can interact with the broader community, right? Okay, well, good. Let's call it a night. It's nice to meet you all. And don't be strangers to the Slack channel, all right?
Great. Thanks a lot.
We shall see you all soon.
Good night.
Good night, and please drive safely.